Joumana Kayrouz. You've seen her images on giant billboards across the metro. Joumana Kayrouz. You've seen her images on buses across the city. Now get to know Joumana Kayrouz.
The war broke out in my home country, Lebanon. I was 11 years old, and I saw a lot of bloodshed and inequality and poverty. You can't grow up in an environment like that and not be affected by it and not want to make a difference. I graduated from Yale University with a master's in ethics. I speak 4 languages. It has always been innate in me fighting for the underdog and trying to do whatever it is I can to make a difference in the world.
Let Joumana Kayrouz protect your rights. Call the law offices of Joumana Kayrouz at 1-866-YOUR-RIGHTS extension 100 or visit yourrights.com.
هل أنت مضطر إلى إشهار إفلاسك؟ لا تأخذ هذه التجربة لوحدك، بل استشر أولا ومجانا مكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز، وتكلم مع المحامي المختص بقضايا الإفلاس مايكل بنكستين، الذي سيساعدك على التخلص من ديونك وفقا للبند السابع لقانون الإفلاس بسعر $575 فقط. ومن الممكن أيضا أن تحصل على إعفاء من أتعاب المحكمة اعتمادا على عدد أفراد الأسرة ومدخولك الشهري. اتصل الآن بمكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز 248-557-3645 والاستشارة مجانية. برنامج يور رايتس مع المحامية جومانا كيروز المختصة في قضايا حوادث السيارات، مع نخبة من المحامين في اختصاصات عدة منها الطلاق والهجرة والإفلاس، يأتيكم الآن على الهواء مباشرة. مساء الخير، أهلا بكم أحبائي المستمعين في حلقة جديدة من برنامج يور رايتس مع المحامية جومانا كيروز، وحلقة اليوم مخصصة لقضايا الإفلاس مع المحامي بنكستين من مكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز. للمشاركة في البرنامج بإمكانكم التواصل معنا على الهواء، والأرقام في الاستوديو هي 313-769-6666 519-256-1023 ودائما على الواتساب 313-327-7074. كما يمكنكم الحصول على استشارات مجانية من مكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز في قضايا الإصابات الشخصية من ضمنها حوادث السيارات، إصابات العمل والأخطاء الطبية، قضايا الهجرة والتجنس، قضايا الإفلاس، قضايا الضمان الاجتماعي وقوانين العائلة. رقم الهاتف هو 248-557-3645. ومكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز انتقل إلى عنوان جديد يقع بالقرب من العنوان القديم، والعنوان الجديد هو 24370 North Western Highway Southfield. وأيضا ننوه أن بإمكانكم متابعة حلقات برنامج يور رايتس مرة أخرى على موقع اليوتيوب وعلى قناة جومانا كيروز على اليوتيوب، ونتمنى لكم أحلى وأجمل الأوقات. إذن نرحب بك جومانا، أهلا وسهلا في برنامج يور رايتس.
صباح الخير رامي، يعطيك ألف عافية. كيفك اليوم؟
الله يعافيك، الحمد لله. نسأل عنك إن شاء الله تمام.
كتر خير الله. صباح الخير لكل المستمعين، وصباح الخير لضيفنا لليوم المحامي مايكل بنكستين، اللي هو اختصاصي في مكتبنا في قضايا الإفلاس، وهو رئيس البانكربسي ديبارتمنت. بيساعد كتير من الأشخاص من الجالية. أي شخص بحب يتصل فينا اليوم عنده أي أسئلة بتخص money judgments، بتخص bankruptcy، بتخص car repossessions، بتخص driver's license restoration، بتخص أي شيء من هدول المواضيع اللي رح نتطرق عليها اليوم شوي بطريقة مفصلة أكتر. يا أهلا وسهلا فيكم. أرقام الاتصال 313-769-6666 313-327-7074 هو رقم الراديو واتساب ليلي بحب يبعث لنا مسج تحت الهواء ومنجاوب عليه على الهواء. Good afternoon, Attorney Michael Benkstein. How are you?
Good afternoon, Joumana. I'm great. How about you?
Very good, very good. Happy to have you like every Friday. Quite a bit we want to talk about today. We have been, I'm just going to have it talk about it in English and then talk about it in Arabic. We've been getting a lot of questions lately, and so you and I thought to talk about it in greater detail. We've been getting a lot of questions about people who may have a money judgment against somebody else. I have seen it a lot lately in the context of what we call mini tort in car accidents. Somebody hits your car, they don't have insurance, you sue them in small claims court, You get a money judgment against them for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. And like a caller who called us, I believe the day before yesterday, had his car hit, and the person who hit his car was not insured. He sued that person in small claims court. The judge gave him a judgment. Let's say it is $3,000. It could be less. Small claims court is now limited for mini tort to only $3,000. No, I do apologize. Let me take that back. When you sue somebody who is not insured, actually, you don't have to limit your recovery to $3,000. The judge will give you a judgment for up to the limit of the damage. So let's say the person who called, I apologize about that. You're only limited to the $3,000 if the person who hit your car is insured. Then that person only has to pay up to $3,000, or that insurance company has to pay up to $3,000. But if somebody hits your car and the person who hit your car is not insured, and the damage to your car is $7,000, you can get the full $7,000. There is no protection for that person because that person violated the law. If the person did not violate the law and bought insurance, then that person is only on the hook up to $3,000. But when the person does not follow the law and drives a car uninsured and hits another car, then the first party can sue the uninsured party, a second party, for up to the full amount. So we had a call, and I'm getting a lot of these calls here in the office lately where people's cars are getting hit by someone who's not insured. So we let them know that if they are not insured, the only way they can do is sue that person in court and get a judgment. Somebody called us, Attorney Michael Benkstein, 2 days ago and said, great, I sued this person in small claims court and I got a judgment. I asked the judge, how do I recover on that, and said, talk to a lawyer. Well, not quite talk to a lawyer, but one of the things I was telling this person is, if you know where the person banks, or if you know where the person works, or if you know where, or if you want to intercept a tax refund that they may get, we're going to talk about this a little bit more today. How do you intercept somebody's tax refund? Because I did have a caller earlier call and say, I hired a lawyer for that. You don't need a lawyer for that. It's okay to hire a lawyer for that, but the form is available. You've done the hardest work, which is, get a judgment against that person. So let's talk a little bit more clearly, or more in greater detail, about if you have a judgment against somebody and you want to intercept their income tax refund. How do you go about doing that? And then, if all else fails and you have a money judgment against somebody and they don't work, and you don't know where they bank, and you don't think they have a tax refund, the ultimate, you called it a nuclear bomb option, is to go to the Secretary of State and ask for their driver's license to be suspended, and their driver's license will be suspended. Before we talk about that, let's talk about if you have a judgment against somebody, whether it's because somebody hit your car and is not insured, or whether, they owe you money, whatever the case may be. First of all, can you intercept their IRS income tax refund or credit? Yes or no?
No, not for just a money judgment. It can be intercepted for other reasons, but not just for a money judgment.
You can intercept it for other reasons, such as child support, let's say. But
that's correct.
If somebody owes you money and you sued them and you got a judgment in court, you cannot intercept their IRS federal income tax return, refund, or credit. Correct? However, you can intercept their Michigan Treasury income tax refund and credit, if any. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What does one need? First of all, does one need to hire a lawyer for that?
Well, I've got a little bit of a skewed perspective because I've been practicing law for 14 years. But from my perspective, I think not in most cases, no. I think you can. There's a form that you fill out that you go back to the court where you got the judgment and submit that, saying, okay, now I want to enforce the judgment and I want to intercept somebody's tax refunds, for example. And pretty much as a matter of course, the court's going to allow you to do that. Then you take that form that the court signed off on, you send it over to the third party withholding unit, and they'll enforce that. They'll pull it out of their tax refund and send it to you.
Okay, so I am looking at that form. That form is available online. It is a form approved by the Michigan Supreme Court, and it is called Request and Writ for Garnishment, in parentheses, income tax refund / credit. And that form is a form where you fill out your name and your address and your social security number and the name of your attorney if you have one. If you don't have one, that's okay. You also fill out the name of the person who owes you money and their social security number if you have it. And what you do is you also fill out the amount of the judgment you have against them. And a lot of judgments, and we're going to translate all this into Arabic, a lot of judgments include judgment interest, meaning that the judge says if they don't pay you within a certain time, the money keeps growing bigger and bigger. So there are 5 lines here. On the first one, you say what the judgment is for. On the next line, you see if there is any interest that has accrued as of today. And then you fill out whether you want the garnishment to be paid to you or to your lawyer, and whether you want it to be mailed to you or to your lawyer or to the court. You sign it, you give $6, and you send it to the state treasury in Lansing, the Michigan Department of Treasury. And the name of the Michigan Department of Treasury and the exact address is already pre-typed on this form. It says here, third party withholding unit, Michigan Department of Treasury, P.O. Box, Lansing, Michigan. So it's already pre-printed for you. So really all you have to do is put your name and your address and your social security number, and your lawyer also, if you do have one, and the name and the address and the social security number, if you know it, of the other person, and say what the judgment amount is, and if there is any judgment interest, and then cross off where you want that money to go. Do you want it to you or to your lawyer or to the court? Do you want it mailed to you, to your lawyer, or to the court? And you send a check for $6 and you mail it to the address that's already printed on this Michigan Supreme Court form. And you also serve a copy of it within 7 days on the defendant as well. So you mail it to the Michigan Department of Treasury, and you serve a copy of it to the defendant within 7 days, so that the defendant knows that you are going to be intercepting, or you're asking the Michigan Department of Treasury to intercept their next income tax refund. So it's really, 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 really as simple as that. And, the state treasury, if they see that there is, if the state treasury, if they see that there is a tax refund to be intercepted, they are going to notify the defendant, and the defendant has 14 days to object to that writ of garnishment, and they wait 28 days. And if there is no objection, then the Michigan Department of Treasury will intercept, will stop that income tax return and reroute it to you, the plaintiff. So the first step is you sue someone. Now you have a judgment from a court. You go back to the same court with a form that's very easy to fill out, that is called a request and writ for garnishment. Once you have it filled out, you mail it along with a $6 check to the Michigan Department of Treasury, because if you have a money judgment against somebody, you can only intercept. And I don't think we've ever said that before. I did not know that personally until attorney Michael Benkstein taught me that today. For a money judgment, you cannot intercept an IRS tax refund. For a money judgment, you can only intercept a state refund. In this particular case, a Michigan Department of Treasury state refund. So you sent the original judgment along with this request and writ of judgment filled out by the court. It's really signed by the deputy court clerk. So you can mail it, you can drop it. They will see your original judgment. And remember, it's the same court that has your judgment. So you're not going to another court. You're returning before the same court and saying, you gave me a judgment, thank you. Now I want to go and garnish money on that judgment. Can you please fill that out? And once they have it filled out, you mail it to the Michigan Department of Treasury, and you will get the income tax refund, if any. So it's a lot of information we gave. We're going to quickly translate this into Arabic, and then we are going to take a quick break and continue. And just so that we don't spend the rest of our time talking about garnishments, today we're only talking about how you garnish somebody's income tax refund. But God willing, next Friday, we can talk about how you can garnish, if you have a money judgment, somebody's bank account or wages from an employer. So رامي صار لنا مدة عم يجينا أسئلة عن رح استعملها كمثل. هي مش بس بتطبق للميني تورت بحوادث السيارات، اللي عم نحكي عنه بيطبق بين طرفين. طرف راح على المحكمة وقام دعوة ضد الطرف الثاني وأخذ من المحكمة أمر for a money judgment. يعني مش اثنين مديونين لبعضهم، no، اثنين مديونين لبعضهم، واحد مديون للثاني، الثاني ما دفع الدين، الطرف الأول قام دعوة ضد الطرف الثاني والمحكمة عطته order for a money judgment. السبب اللي عم نحكي عنه شوي أكثر مؤخراً لأن عم يجينا اتصالات بالمكتب وعم يجينا على الراديو اتصالات من قبل أشخاص عم يتعرضوا لضرب سيارتهم من قبل أشخاص آخرين ما عندهم انشورنس. سو الحل هون إنه يروحوا على المحكمة ويقيموا دعوة ضد الطرف الثاني. شخص من المتصلين مثلا، وعم يجينا كتير اتصالات بالمكتب بهذا الموضوع، عم بيقولوا لنا اوكي تبعنا تعليماتكم، رحنا على المحكمة، جبنا أمر من القاضي، جريت، السيارة تبعي مضروبة لنقول $7,000، اجاني أمر، بس هلا كيف بدي اجيب المصاري من هيدا الطرف الثاني؟ ليقدر الإنسان يجيب مصاري من طرف ثاني بده يعرف وين بيشتغل، هيدا إذا بيشتغل، ولحتى يبعت garnishment لرب العمل بده يعرف إذا where he banks ليقدر يبعت garnishment للبنك. وكمان هون في procedures لما ناخد الوقت كله اليوم نحكي عنهم، بنحكي عن how do you garnish، كيف فيك تبلغ رب عمل أو كيف فيك تبلغ بنك، شو الإجراءات، شو الأوراق اللي هي مشابهة كتير للورقة اللي عم نحكي عنها اليوم، أو شو المستندات اللي بدك تبعتها لحتى يشيلوا مصاري من البنك أكاونت. نحكي عنها بإذن الله نهار الجمعة القادم، بس اليوم رح نحكي عن إذا عندك أمر مصاري مادي ضد طرف تاني وبدك to intercept، يعني بدك توقف الانكم تاكس ريتيرن أو الانكم تاكس كريدت اللي الطرف الثاني رح يوصله من الحكومة. شو الإجراء اللي بتقدر تعمله لحتى هاي المصاري تجي لعندك ما تروح للطرف الثاني اللي أنت بدك منه مصاري؟ أول شغلة بتعملها بدك تروح على المحكمة. الموضوع اللي عم نحكيه اليوم بيطبق فقط إذا الطرف قام دعوة وربح ضد الطرف الثاني وعنده أمر من المحكمة، بيسموه money judgment أو judgment، يعني أمر order from the court. هاي أول طرف، هيدي أول نقطة. تاني نقطة، لحتى تقدر تعمل intercepting للطرف الثاني الانكم تاكس ريفند تبعهم، ومثل ما قلنا ما فيك تعملها مع IRS، فيك تعمل intercepting of IRS tax refund إذا طرف بده من الطرف الثاني مثلا child support arrears. but money judgment ما فيك تطال الطرف الثاني IRS refund تبعهم، فيك فقط تطال الستيت تاكس ريفند تبعهم. يعني الحكي اللي عم نحكيه اليوم اللي هو بسبب money judgment بيطبق فقط للميشيغان Department of Treasury. يعني إذا الإنسان الطرف الثاني بده يجي income tax refund أو credit من التريجري مش من IRS. So أول شغلة الإنسان بيحصل على judgment. تاني شغلة بيرجع لعند المحكمة ذاتها في ورقة، هيدا الورقة هيدا المستند اسمه request and writ for garnishment in parentheses income tax refund / credit. هيدي موجودة online رامي. هيدي is a form بسمون approved SCAO forms, approved Supreme Court approved, I don't know what O stands for. هيدول forms المحكمة العليا في ميشيغان سامحة فيهم وموجودين، بقدر أنا أوصل لهم، حضرتك تقدر توصل لهم، أي مستمع بيقدر يوصل لهم. They are online for everybody. ورقة كتير هينة اسمها request and writ for garnishment، بدنا نعبيها وبدنا نرجع لذات المحكمة. مثل الشخص اللي اتصل من يومين وقال جريت القاضي عطاني أمر، هلأ شو بعمل؟ قال له القاضي احكي مع محامي. كان لازم القاضي يقول له عبي the request and writ for garnishment وعطيني إياها لأنا أمضيها. أنا القاضي بفتكر القاضي كان بديربون أو بديربون هايتس. المحكمة اللي بتعطي الأمر هي اللي بنرجع لها ونطلب منها تمضي لنا هاي الورقة فيها اسمنا، مفروض كتير هينة تاخد دقيقتين لنعبيها. عملية شمال منعبي اسمنا وعنواننا ومنحط السوشيال سيكوريتي نمبر تبعنا ومنحط اسم المحامي تبعنا إذا عنا محامي. على فكرة على الميل اليمين منحط اسم المدعي عليه اللي هو هلأ صار judgment debtor لأنه القاضي طلع أمر ضده، ومنحط السوشيال سيكوريتي نمبر تبع الطرف الآخر إذا عنا إياها. تحتها محطوط الادرس اللي بدنا نبعت هاي المعلومات عليها. تحتها منقول إنه بنهار معين نحن حصلنا على أمر ضد الشخص الثاني ومنحط الرقم لنقول $5,000. هلأ في كتير اوردرز بيكون فيهم انترست، يعني إذا اللي مفروض يدفعون ما دفعون ضمن بفتكر 28 days إذا ماني غلطانة is the time when you have to pay a judgment، بيصير عليها الفايدة judgment interest. بتضيف على تاني لاين الفايدة في محل بتعبي إذا أنت بدك إنه هاي المصاري تروح لإلك أو تروح للمحامي تبعك أو تروح للمحكمة، وإذا بدك تنبعت بالبريد لإلك أو للمحامي تبعك أو للمحكمة. بتمضي اسمك وبتحط التاريخ، وهيدي it's like an affidavit، يعني it's under penalty of perjury، يعني أنت بتحلف اليمين فيها. بما إنه هاي بدك تعبيها من قبل المحكمة بتجيب مع الاوردر اللي انت عندك اياه. الاوردر طلع من المحكمه، بتراجع ذات المحكمه بتمضيهم هيدي الورقه لانه هن اللي ما بتروح على محكمه تاني رامي، ذات المحكمه طلعت لك الامر هي اللي بتعبي لك الريكوست اند فور جادجمنت، بتبعتها مع $6 للادرس اللي موجوده اوريدي بري برينتد على الفورم اللي هي ميشيغان ديبارتمنت اوف تريجري. بتبعت الاوردر وبتبعت معه الريكوست اند ريت فور جادجمنت اللي ممضي بالكعب من قبل الديبيتي كورت كليرك وحاطين التاريخ. بتبعتها مع $6 للستيت تريجري للميشيغان ديبارتمنت اوف تريجري، وبتعطي نسخه منها ضمن 7 أيام للمدعي عليه لحتى المدعي عليه يعرف انه انت طلبت الولايه ليعملوا له انترسبشن للإنكم تاكس ريفند تبعه. هلأ المدعي عليه لنقول حضرتك عم تتعدى عليه تعدية، لنقول مثلا المصاري دفع لك إياها، كمان this is called due process، يعني كل إنسان مدعي عليه بحق له يتبلغ وبحق له يعارض. كمان القانون بيقول موجودة على الورقة إنه الطرف الثاني وقت اللي بيتبلغ لا أكتر ولا أقل. هلأ إذا ستيت تريجري لقيت مصاري وبدها تجي تعمل لها ري راوتينج من البنك أكاونت تبع المدعي عليه للبنك أكاونت تبع اللي عنده الأمر، الستيت تريجري بدها تبلغ المدعي عليه. المدعي عليه عنده 14 نهار من التبليغ ليعارض. إذا ضمن 28 نهار ما عارض، المصاري أوتوماتيكلي بتروح من الميشيغان ديبارتمنت اوف تريجري دغري لصاحب الأمر أو صاحب الشأن، مش على المدعي عليه. هاي هي الطريقة اللي إنسان عنده money judgment من المحكمة ضد طرف آخر بيقدر يطلب من الميشيغان ديبارتمنت اوف تريجري توقف وتعمل ري راوتينج للمدعي عليه الانكم تاكس ريفاند سلاش كريدت. نهار الجمعة القادم من الله راد وإذا الله عيشنا بنحكي عن ذات السيناريو اللي بده مصاري من التاني وعنده أمر من المحكمة، بس بده بيعرف إنه هذا الشخص المدعي عليه بيشتغل أو بيعرف where she or he banks، كيف بيقدر يبلغ البنك قانونيا وشرعيا، وكيف بيقدر يبلغ رب العمل قانونيا وشرعيا، لكمان البنك مش تعمل انترسبتنج بس تشيل مصاري من البنك اكاونت لحد قيمة المبلغ، أو تشيل من معاش هذا الشخص لحد 25%. هيدي طريقة. وأوقات الإنسان اللي بيقدم ريت اوف جارنشمنت للإنكم تاكس ريفاند للطرف الثاني على فكرة أوقات ما بيحصل عليها من أول سنة، لأنه يمكن ما بيكون في تاكس ريفاند، يمكن ينتظر لتاني سنة. يعني فينا نحكي بطريقة مفصلة أكتر بكتير عن هذا الموضوع، بس اليوم بس حبيت أول شيء أحكي بطريقة مفصلة أكتر كيف الإنسان بيقدر يعمل intercepting of a tax refund. حبيت أوضح اللي تعلمته أنا شيء جديد اليوم، اللي هو إنه for a money judgment ما فيك تعمل IRX interception of a tax refund، بس a state interception of a tax refund. والإجراءات السهلة كتير، السريعة الكتير، اللي بتكلف كتير قليل $6. ناخد وقفة سريعة ومنكمل على طرق أخرى بالإضافة ل intercepting a tax refund، بالإضافة ل notifying and taking لحد 25% من راتب الإنسان المدعي عليه، أو garnishing their bank account. الطريقة الأخيرة اللي بيسميها حكينا عنها مرة أو مرتين بالماضي، بنحكي عنها بطريقة سريعة، بيسميها المحامي مايكل بانكستين nuclear option، اللي هي للأسف ونحن ما بدنا نعلم العالم على بعضها، بس للأسف اللي عنده money judgment ضد التاني و it has not been paid within 30 days أو 28 days إذا ماني غلطانة، بحق له يوقف ويعمل suspension للدرايفرز لايسنس تبع الطرف الآخر.
هل أنت مضطر إلى إشهار إفلاسك؟ لا تأخذ هذه التجربة لوحدك، بل استشر أولا ومجانا مكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز، وتكلم مع المحامي المختص بقضايا الإفلاس مايكل بانكستين، الذي سيساعدك على التخلص من ديونك وفقا للبند السابع لقانون الإفلاس بسعر $575 فقط. ومن الممكن أيضا أن تحصل على إعفاء من أتعاب المحكمة اعتمادا على عدد أفراد الأسرة ومدخولك الشهري. اتصل الآن بمكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز 248-557-3645 والاستشارة مجانية. مكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز تتمنى لكم السلامة في ظل انتشار وباء كوفيد-19. المحامية جومانا كيروز مثلت على مدى 22 عاما ضحايا حوادث السيارات مع طاقم من المحامين ذوي الخبرة، وحصلت لموكليها على تعويضات بمئات الملايين من الدولارات. قبل أن تختار المحامي الذي سيدافع عن قضيتك، دقق في تاريخه المهني. ومع مكاتب جومانا كيروز ستنذهل بآراء مئات الموكلين وخبراتهم الإيجابية في جوجل ريفيوز. مكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز يتحدثون لغتك العربية والكلدانية 248-557-3645 والاستشارة مجانية. مكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز يعلن عن استقبال الموكلين والمراجعين في العنوان الجديد 24370 نورث ويسترن هايواي ساوثفيلد، على مسافة قريبة من موقع المكتب القديم. مكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز يتعامل مع كافة قضاياكم المتعلقة بالإصابات الشخصية، من ضمنها حوادث السيارات، إصابات العمل، الأخطاء الطبية، بالإضافة إلى قضايا الهجرة والتجنس، الإفلاس، الضمان الاجتماعي وقوانين العائلة، والاستشارات مجانية 248-557-3645. Your Rights مع المحامية جومانا كيروز. هذه عودة إلى برنامج Your Rights. أرقام الهواتف في الاستوديو للمشاركة في حلقة اليوم المخصصة لقضايا الإفلاس. أرقام الهواتف في الاستوديو 313-769-6666 519-256-123. دائما عن طريق الواتساب 313-327-7074. جمانة نرجع لك.
شكرا رامي. اليوم مثل كل نهار جمعة بنحكي عن قانون الإفلاس وما يجاوره مثل ما بيقولوا مع المحامي مايكل بنكستين. في خطوة بيسميها المحامي مايكل بنكستين نيوكليير اوبشن، خطوة نووية. أغلبية أصحاب الديون ما بيحبوا يختاروها، لأنه بالنهاية إذا أنت كنت كريدت كارد أو إذا أنت بنك أو إذا أنت كمباني بدها مصاري، ما بدها تحرم الطرف الثاني من الدرايفرز لايسنس، ريلي بدهم مصاري. بس هيدا الحل موجود، وموجود فقط وقت اللي بيكون في أمر بين طرفين، إن كان شركة وشخص أو شخصين for money judgment، يعني دفع مصاري والمصاري ما عم بتتم. you can get the other person's attention إذا بتروح على السكرتاري of state وبتفرج الأمر وبتطلب وبتعبي ورقة معينة وبتطلب إنه الطرف الثاني إذا حتى الدفع أكثر من يا 28 يا 30 نهار ما بتذكر، ساعتها بتقدر تطلب من السكرتاري of state to suspend somebody's driver's license. هيدي مشكلة كبيرة. أغلبية الأوقات أصحاب الديون، لنقول السكرتاري كارد كومباني، ما بيهمها تعملها، لأنه بدها المديون يضل يشتغل، يضل يسوق، لا يضل يشتغل، لا يضل يطلع مصاري، لا يقدروا ياخدوا منه المصاري. بس إذا شخص مثلا، يعني بعتذر على الكلمة البشعة، بده يترازل على الثاني أو wants to get his attention لأنه ما عم يدفع المصاري اللي الأمر من المحكمة بيجبره يدفعها، بيقدر يروح على السكرتاري اوف ستيت ويطلب، والسكرتاري اوف ستيت قانونيا مفروض مجبورة تعمل سسبنشن للدرايفرز لايسنس تبع الطرف الآخر لحد ما الطرف الآخر يدفع المصاري. Attorney Michael Benkstein, the nuclear option that you talked about, you said it's not a favorite of creditors generally. Why is that?
Well, because they want the money, really, at the end of the day. If you can't drive, you can't get to work, you can't earn money, you can't pay them. So really, it's a case most often I see where people have taken active steps to sort of make sure they don't have a bank account in their name, or they're working cash under the table, or they just haven't filed their tax returns the last couple of years. If they're having a real hard time getting your attention, they'll do that, but that's not their first go-to kind of move generally.
Now, normally, when I looked at it last time, you have to not have paid within 30 days from when the judgment or the order is signed. So you wait about 30 days or 28 days, and if there is no payment within that period, then you can go to the Secretary of State and you can ask for the defendant's driver's license to be suspended.
Yeah, they've got a form for that. They have another one of those SCAO forms for that, where you'd have the court sign something, and you'd send an abstract of that court ruling over to the Secretary of State's office and ask that it be suspended.
Right. Have you seen this happen?
Yes, that's one of the things that kind of I've absolutely had people come in because their driver license has been suspended for non-payment on a judgment. And there's things you can do in bankruptcy to kind of undo that.
Right. Now, if you come to a bankruptcy lawyer because your driver's license has been suspended because of a money judgment against you that you did not pay and you could not pay, then yes, the filing of bankruptcy will get you your driver's license restored. If your driver's license is suspended for other reasons, like too many tickets or a drunk driving offense or whatever, filing bankruptcy will not help you. But the reason why you see this as a bankruptcy attorney is because somebody will have their license suspended because they owe money that they could not pay and there is a judgment against them. And so they know that the solution, it's never a perfect solution, filing bankruptcy, but it's always like the lesser of two evils. It's either filing bankruptcy or staying without a valid driver's license, which is very dangerous and very risky. And you will be jailed if you drive on a suspended driver's license. And the costs are astronomical to restore it as well. So sometimes people will come to the office because they have a suspended driver's license because they owe money that they did not pay, and the creditor went to the Secretary of State and suspended it. In that case, your filing of bankruptcy will lift that suspension, right? Is it from the date of the filing or the date of discharge?
We don't wait until you get a discharge. What happens is we notify, when we file the bankruptcy, we notify the relevant agencies over at the Michigan Secretary of State's office. Now, sometimes they'll on their own reinstate the driver license. Certainly by the time you get your discharge and that judgment no longer exists as a matter of law, occasionally I've had to send a couple of letters over to the Secretary of State's office to get them to reinstate the driver license, but we've never not reinstated the driver license for non-payment of a judgment when somebody files a bankruptcy.
So technically, the filing date of the bankruptcy, not the discharge, is what permits the what do you call the person who files bankruptcy? The claimant? No, not the claimant.
The debtor.
The debtor or the petitioner automatically allows them to get it back. Now, does the person have to do anything to get it back, or just you notifying, in theory, you notifying the Secretary of State is enough?
Yeah, that's usually enough. I mean, again, sometimes we have to send a follow-up letter to them, but really all you have to do is let me know that your driver license was suspended for non-payment of a judgment. And if I'm putting a bankruptcy together for you, we can certainly give the Secretary of State's office notice of it as well. Because the whole point of the suspension is non-payment on a judgment. But, to the extent you get your discharge in bankruptcy, that debt no longer exists as a matter of law. So the whole basis for the suspension has gone away.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Like every Friday, we talk about bankruptcy and topics surrounding bankruptcy with attorney Michael Benkstein. The number to call is 313-769-6666. If you want to send us your question on the radio WhatsApp number, and we will read it on the air and answer it, that number is 313-327-7074. God willing, within the next 24 hours, this show, for those who missed it, who want to hear more about how do you intercept somebody's tax refund, for example, you can listen to it on our YouTube channel, Joumana Kayrouz YouTube channel. If you click the button subscribe, you will always be notified of when Rami, thank you Rami, downloads the show on YouTube, and you can listen to it again. So it will be available very, very soon. Moving on, good news, but we do not want to overpromise because we certainly never want to underdeliver. So good news, but rare is the case where we can achieve that, is as it pertains to student loans. You are about to get a client of ours student loans discharged, wiped out, because we've always said that when you file for bankruptcy, a lot of your loans and debts are discharged, but some debts can never be discharged, even if you file for bankruptcy. Child support, alimony payments, student loans. 99.99999% of the time, you are stuck with them. And you can file bankruptcy all you want. You will never be able to get rid of them unless you're 1 in 1,000. That's why we don't want to overpromise, because we don't want to underdeliver. Unless you're one special case where your circumstances allow you to have your lawyer ask the court and the bankruptcy trustee to wipe out your student loan and succeed. About a year and a half ago, we did a whole show on a case, a federal case, because bankruptcy law is federal law. It's the same law in New York, California, and in Michigan. A case that, if I'm not mistaken, was from New Jersey or New York. I don't remember. The Brunner case, Brunner. The court looked, it was an amazing opinion. We spent an hour talking about all the factors, and the court gave so many examples of people who applied to the courts to have their student loans wiped out, and they were denied, and examples of people who applied to the court to have their student loans wiped out, and they were they were accepted. The court in Brunner gave a number of factors, gave 3 tests, and gave a number of factors that if you satisfy the totality of them, so it's not an exact number, then the court will make a recommendation to have your student loans wiped out. We have a case where we're about to do that. Without saying too much, Attorney Michael Benkstein, tell us about why you are going to be able to have this person under Brunner, this Brunner case, why this client of ours, student loans are going to be wiped out.
Well, because the last day that the U.S. Department of Education has to respond is Monday. And here we are Friday afternoon, and they have a pretty lengthy amount of time to respond. My belief is they would have responded by now if they were going to respond. We won't know for sure until, Tuesday morning, and we see that they haven't filed a response. So we may very well get a default judgment on the U.S. Department of Education on that case.
So now why are we dealing with the U.S. Department of Education?
Because that's who you have to serve when you're seeking to discharge your student loans.
Regardless of who is the originator of the loan?
Well, in this particular case, it's a federal loan.
Okay.
Yeah, so when it's a federal loan, you have to notify, one of the people you have to notify, the organizations you have to notify is the U.S. Department of Education.
Okay. So putting that aside for a minute, we think that this is a very good case. And you get asked that question a lot, of those who come to us with student loans. Can you wipe out my student loans? You have to sift through them. This case was a good case. Tell us why it's a good, no matter whether we get a default judgment or whether we have a good chance in front of the judge and the bankruptcy trustee. Tell us why this is a good case to have this lady's student loans wiped out.
Because fundamentally, when you're seeking to discharge student loans, you look at 3 basic things. And it's way more complicated than this, but when you're stepping back, taking the bird's eye view. One is a present inability to pay. Well, that's easy. Anybody who's going to be a Chapter 7 bankruptcy has a present inability to pay. The second thing is this inability to pay likely to persist for a significant portion of the repayment period? Not just do you have no money today, do you not have any money for 2 years? Are you never going to be able to pay this off, like for decades? And then the third thing is,
for example, if you are sick, if you are permanently disabled, or if you are nearing retirement age and you're not employable, so that will inform the court that not only are you not able to pay today, but it looks like you will not be able to pay in the future on this loan.
Correct. So there's a huge difference. It's like riding the bike. There's a huge difference between a 28-year-old with a master's degree from Wayne State University in molecular biology, who, you might not have any money right now, but are you not going to be able to pay this for the next 40 years versus somebody who's maybe 60? I'm sorry?
Because you're only 28 and you have the rest of your working life ahead of you to make money.
Right. Here's the bookend of that. Somebody who's 67 years old probably should have already retired a couple of years ago. And the student loan debt was a very much smaller amount in the late 1980s. And now the entire amount that she's paid on these loans over the years is greater than the amount of the original principal. But now it's $35,000 or $40,000 when maybe it was $5,000 in the late 80s. And with chronic and progressive medical issues. So there's a huge difference. It's really more kind of the hard luck case. Can you never pay this back kind of a thing?
All right. So the 3 factors are: 1, are you unable to pay today? That's easy. Anybody who's applying for bankruptcy, the answer is yes. Are you not likely to be able to pay into the future? That's the second factor. What's the third?
The third factor is that it's not your fault, is that there was no kind of, sabotage kind of thing. So, for example, you talked about a line of cases. One case is somebody who went to law school, got a law degree, and then just didn't work for 3 years, and then files for bankruptcy and says, "Oh, I can't pay the student loans." Well, it's obvious, like it was a setup, basically. Or so it's like if you've never made a payment on your student loans ever, that's not a great fact in your favor. It's not required, but it's pretty close to require that you've made some good faith attempts to pay it over the years, even if you weren't able to make a significant dent in it, for example.
So young people who are just out of school, unless they have a medical condition or a condition that prevents them from being employable into the future, their chances of getting their student debt under the Bruner case is slim to none.
Right. It's difficult to argue for someone just out of school in good health with no dependents that you're never going to be able to pay this off for like 50 years.
And that is why in shows past, when we talked about student loans, we said just because you can get a student loan does not mean you should get a student loan, because 99.99% of the time, like you're saying, Attorney Michael Benkstein, you're not going to be able to wipe it out in bankruptcy. And it's like the Energizer Bunny. It keeps on accruing interest after interest after interest. Like this lady started with $5,000 and now the loan is more than $35,000. That's the problem with student loans. You have to be very careful before you take a student loan. You shouldn't take a student loan without looking at what you're taking the student loan for. What degree are you getting if you take a student loan for? Are you likely to make the return on that money if you use the student loan to get the degree and work with that degree? So just because you can have a student loan does not mean that you should automatically say yes. You have to examine it, because once you take the student loan, chances of you being able to wipe or clean or get rid of that student loan is nil to nothing. And student loans, they're like credit cards, except that credit cards can be wiped out in bankruptcy. Student loans can't. That's why we say it's like the Energizer Bunny. They keep on going and going and growing and growing and growing. Interest rate on top of interest rate on top of interest rate. $1,000 quickly becomes $5,000. Imagine 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So beware of student loans. Care to comment about that? And I know it's not politically correct to say that. I don't think a lot of people who are listening have ever looked at a student loan as a kind of thing where, well, thank you, but let me see if I really want to get that student loan, if it's a good idea to get a student loan. Care to comment about that?
I do. If you're going to go to school, just understand that you have to have a good plan in place. You have to think about, this was particularly for my generation. You go back 20 years or so, and the idea was kind of build it and they will come. Get a college degree and automatically you're going to be making more money. Or if you've got a college degree, go get a master's degree. But you really have to have a plan in place. There's a huge difference between a fine arts degree and a supply chain management degree in terms of being able to get a job out of the box and start getting a return on your investment.
I mean, let's be honest, some degrees that we get, we might not even be able to find a job in that degree. Some very outfield degrees, well, great, you get a student loan of $30,000, it's $100,000 before you know it. You haven't even been able to get a job with that degree.
Yeah, so if somebody goes to go to a private college to get a degree in ancient Greek sculpture, that's all fine and well, but you better be the best one at that so that you can get a job when you actually get out.
So that you can pay your student loan.
Correct.
And that's the key. I don't think there is enough education about that, because I really think that the idea of getting a student loan is glorious at first. But once you start saying, but wait, will I be able, with the degree I have, will I be able to repay that and pay it quickly so that it doesn't double and triple and quadruple? Then you start thinking about this and saying, well, no, not always. I'm not always going to accept that student loan.
That's great advice.
Well, thank you very much. We have about 6 minutes remaining. Can we take a very, very, very quick break, Rami?
Sure.
And then, thank you.
هل أنت مضطر إلى إشهار إفلاسك؟ لا تأخذ هذه التجربة لوحدك، بل استشر أولا ومجانا مكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز، وتكلم مع المحامي المختص بقضايا الإفلاس مايكل بنكستين، الذي سيساعدك على التخلص من ديونك وفقا للبند السابع لقانون الإفلاس بسعر $575 فقط. ومن الممكن أيضا أن تحصل على إعفاء من أتعاب المحكمة اعتمادا على عدد أفراد الأسرة ومدخولك الشهري. اتصل الآن بمكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز 248-557-3645 والاستشارة مجانية. Your Rights مع المحامية جومانا كيروز. تذكير برقم الهاتف في مكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز للاستشارات المجانية 248-557-3645. جومانا نرجع لك.
شكرا رامي. بعد عنا أقل من دقائق انه نحكي عن موضوع جديد. رح بس نعلق شوي ونترجم شوي الحديث عن الستودنت لونز للعربي. كقاعدة عامة وقت الإنسان بيقدم إفلاسه رامي لأنه بيكون عنده ديون ما قادر يردها أو ما قادر يدفعها. وكقاعدة عامة 99% من ديون الإنسان إذا مؤهل يقدم بانكربسي رح تنمحى، مثلا كريدت كارد ديت مثلا. وإنما في بعض الديون لو شو ما عملت ما بتنمحى، مثلا child support payments، مثلا alimony payments. student loans هن مثل child support payments، مثل alimony payments. وإنما in the right case اللي هو نادر ما يحصل، in the right case وهو نادر ما يحصل، يمكن هو 1 من 1000، ممكن اللي عنده student loans يقدم على إفلاس ويقدر يمحي الستودنت لونز تبعه. حكينا من سنة ونص بطريقة كتير مفصلة، حلقة كاملة عن الستودنت لونز، هل بيقدر الواحد يمحيون، وإذا بيقدر الواحد يمحيون بأي ظروف بيقدر يمحيون. في كيس نزل من الفيدرال كورت اسمه برونر BRUNNER، حكي بطريقة مفصلة جدا جدا جدا، وكانت opinion مفيدة جدا 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 عن الستودنت لونز. عطت المحكمة it's a panel I believe of Court of Appeals 3 إذا ماني غلطانة، عطوا كتير examples أمثال في هيدي الopinion عن مين عنده student loan وبحياته ما رح يكون مؤهل، ومين عنده student loans وممكن يكون مؤهل لينعفى عن هدول student loans. وخلاصة الأمر هي student loans إذا كان الإنسان ما قادر يدفعها اليوم بس ممكن يكون قادر يدفعها بالمستقبل ما رح ينعفى عنها. بس إذا الستودنت لونز ما قادر يدفعها اليوم والظاهر إنه ما رح يكون قادر يدفعها بالمستقبل، لنقول مثل ما قال شخص عمره 67 سنة وبعد لهلا ما قدر دفع الستودنت لونز، كان مفروض يتقاعد. 67 سنة ما رح يقدر يلاقي شغل، ما رح يقدر يلاقي حدا يوصفه. ما فينا نقول never but نحكي بالطريقة يعني بطريقة ممكن ساعتها إذا هيدا الإنسان أو إنسان مريض، إنسان حالته بتمنعه اليوم وبالمستقبل إنه يشتغل لأنه عنده ظروف طبية جدية وبيرمننت، هيدا الإنسان ممكن يقدم إفلاسه ويطلب إنه ينعفى عن الستودنت لونز. في عنا سيدة كانت تلميذة بوين ستيت من 30 سنة، أخذت لون $5000، هلأ صارت اللون $35,000 وهي دافعة عليها، مش إنه مش دافعة عليها، دافعة بس شي كانت كاتشاب وصارت شوي كبيرة بالعمر. الظاهر إنه رح نقدر نمحي لها الستودنت لون تبعها. النقطة هون هي إنه ستودنت لونز كقاعدة عامة إذا قدمت إفلاسك ما بتنعفى عنهم، وإنما in the right case, in the right scenario, under the right circumstances، إذا عندك student loan معينة ببعض الظروف بتقدر تنمح عليها. وهون بنرجع بنحذر، مش لأنه إنسان بيقدر ياخد student loans it's a good idea، لأنه بنعرف 99.99% منهم ما بينعفى عنهم وعليهم دايما فايدة، وما بيقدر الإنسان يقدم إفلاسه. يعني you can never get rid of them. لازم يعد 1% قبل ما يقبل student loan على degree بده يحصل عليه. شكرا جزيلا. happy weekend to everybody. thank you attorney Michael Benkstein. رامي thank you very much. وللتنين الله رب.
إن شاء الله. تحياتنا لك جمانة. نشكر لكل مستمعينا حسن المتابعة. إلى اللقاء.